The dog growled at the baby every night. At first, it was barely a rumble, soft, low, almost like a murmur carried on the wind. But it happened again and again. Every night, around the same time, the golden retriever sat stiffly beside the crib and let out that same strange, warning growl. It wasn't playful. It wasn't protective. It was as if something invisible stood too close to the child, and only the dog could see it. Hannah jolted awake the first time it happened, heart pounding in the quiet dark. She rushed into the nursery, where the baby slept peacefully under a soft blue blanket. And there was Daisy, ears back, body tense, eyes locked on the crib, a steady growl humming from deep inside her chest. Nothing moved. No shadows. No sounds. Just the dog. Watching. Growling. Waiting. And from that night on, the growling never stopped. Hannah and Mark had welcomed their first child, a baby boy named Noah, just 4 months ago. Their small suburban home in Oregon had been filled with laughter, lullabies, and the kind of quiet joy that only new parents truly understood. Alongside them was Daisy, their 5-year-old golden retriever, who had been part of the family since she was a pup. Daisy was more than a pet. She was gentle, affectionate, and unusually intuitive. She followed Hannah from room to room during pregnancy and curled protectively beside the crib once Noah arrived, as if understanding the responsibility placed upon her. Neighbors often remarked how calm and well-behaved Daisy was. She never barked unnecessarily, never chewed furniture, and never showed an ounce of aggression. To the Johnsons, she wasn't just their dog. She was Noah's furry guardian. Every night, she would trot into the nursery and lie down beside his crib as if on duty. But then, just days ago, Daisy stopped lying down. She no longer rested or slept during those late hours. Instead, she sat upright, tense and unblinking, staring at Noah with an intensity that felt unnatural. And always she growled. Low, controlled, but unmistakably disturbed. At first, Hannah and Mark dismissed the growling as a strange phase. Maybe Daisy was unsettled by something small, shadows from the curtains, a creaky floorboard, a strange noise outside. But when the growling persisted night after night, always beginning around 2 a.m., concern began to creep into their quiet life. It wasn't random. It was consistent, almost mechanical. They began sleeping with the nursery monitor volume turned up high. Each night, right on schedule, Daisy would walk into the room, sit stiffly beside the crib, and release that haunting growl from deep within her chest. Noah, sleeping peacefully, remained untouched by the tension surrounding him. But Daisy, she was alert, on edge, like a soldier guarding against an invisible enemy. One night, they decided to stay up and see it for themselves. As the clock turned past 2 a.m., Daisy stood, tail low and rigid, and walked silently to the nursery. She stared into the crib, then at the far corner of the room, and began to growl. Nothing was there. No sound, no light, no movement. Just Daisy and that chilling, low vibration in the dark. Growing worried, they scheduled a vet visit the next day. The doctor examined her thoroughly. Temperature, ears, joints, eyes, reflexes. Everything came back perfect. She's healthy as ever, the vet said with a smile. Maybe she's just being protective. Still uneasy, Mark installed a small motion sensor camera in the nursery, hoping it would catch whatever Daisy was reacting to. The next night, they watched the live feed from their bedroom. As expected, Daisy walked in at 2:03 a.m., sat beside the crib, and began growling. The footage showed no movement, no flickering lights, no unusual shadows, just Daisy, unmoving, eyes tracking something unseen. Mark shared the footage with a local dog trainer. The man watched silently, then shook his head. That's not aggression. That's alertness. She's reacting to something she perceives as a threat. Could be a noise we can't hear. Could be vibrations. Could even be scent-related. But she's not imagining it. Desperate for answers, they called in a home inspection team to check for gas leaks, electrical faults, mold, anything. Every test came back clear. The house was safe. And yet, every night, Daisy growled. Hannah sat curled on the living room couch one afternoon, eyes red, cradling Noah in her arms as he dozed off after feeding. Daisy lay a few feet away, head down on her paws, watching her quietly. The growling had not stopped, and the tension in the house grew heavier with each passing night. "I don't understand," Hannah whispered, tears welling up. "She's always loved him. She was there the day he came home from the hospital. She hasn't left his side since." Mark stood near the window, staring out into the yard with arms crossed. He didn't speak much these days. Sleep had become a luxury neither of them could afford. Every time the clock neared 2 in the morning, they braced themselves. The sound of that low, steady growl had become almost unbearable. They began to avoid looking at Daisy directly. It felt wrong, like they were blaming her, but the thought had begun to form. What if Daisy was dangerous? What if one day she didn't just growl? "I'm scared," Hannah confessed one evening. What if she snaps? What if something's wrong in her head? Dogs change after babies come home. Maybe she's jealous. Maybe she's just broken. Mark didn't respond. Instead, he sat down beside her and wrapped an arm around her trembling shoulders. "We might have to let her go," he finally said, voice barely above a whisper. "Just until we figure this out. For Noah's safety." The words hung heavy in the air. Daisy lifted her head at the sound of her name, ears perked, eyes full of trust. She didn't know. She couldn't understand. But the air between them had changed. And for the first time since they brought Noah home, Hannah couldn't bring herself to meet Daisy's eyes. The 10th night felt different. Hannah couldn't sleep. She lay awake in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, counting the seconds until 2 a.m. In the dim glow of the hallway nightlight, the house was eerily quiet. Even Daisy hadn't moved from her spot at the foot of the bed. But when the clock on Mark's phone blinked 2:02, Daisy stood up. Without a sound, she walked to the nursery. Hannah followed, staying just behind her. Daisy's pace quickened. Then, as she entered the nursery, she didn't growl. She barked. One sharp, urgent bark that cracked the silence in half. Noah stirred in his crib. Hannah's pulse spiked. "Daisy, what is it?" Then Daisy lunged. She grabbed the leg of Hannah's pajama pants between her teeth, not aggressively, but with purpose, and tugged hard. Hannah stumbled forward. "Stop!" she gasped, heart racing. Daisy barked again and ran to the side of the crib. Her body was rigid, tail still, ears flat. Then she did something she had never done before. She jumped up, placing her front paws on the crib's edge, and pushed her nose toward Noah's face. Hannah rushed to the crib. Noah. He wasn't moving. She touched his cheek. Cold. His lips were pale. His tiny chest was still. "Noah," she screamed. Mark bolted from the bedroom, but the room had already descended into chaos. Hannah reached in and scooped Noah into her arms. He hung limp, lifeless. Daisy let out a series of panicked barks, then pushed her head against Noah's side. Again and again. Her nose nudged him, firm but gentle. And then it happened. A faint gasp. Noah twitched. His eyes fluttered. A whimper turned into a weak, desperate cry. He was breathing again. Hannah sobbed, clutching her baby, shaking from fear and relief. Mark called 911, voice cracking as he explained what had just happened. And Daisy? She sat down at the edge of the crib once more, panting heavily, her eyes never leaving Noah. She had known. All along, she had known. At the hospital, doctors worked quickly to stabilize Noah. Electrodes were attached. Oxygen flowed through a tiny mask, and soft beeping filled the room. Hannah sat beside the crib in the pediatric ICU, clutching her son's hand with both of hers, her knuckles white from tension. Mark stood just behind her, unmoving, pale as the sheets Noah lay on. Hours passed. Eventually, a doctor entered the room with a clipboard in hand and a gentle expression on his face. "We believe we have an answer," he said. Hannah stood, heart in her throat. "Noah has a rare condition called infant sleep apnea," the doctor explained. "It causes a baby to stop breathing during sleep. Most infants grow out of it, but some episodes can be severe, life-threatening, even." Her knees buckled slightly. Mark caught her. "Was that what happened tonight?" he asked. The doctor nodded. "Yes, and based on your description, it wasn't the first time. Your dog, Daisy, may have sensed his breathing stopping. Some animals can pick up on subtle changes in scent or sound before machines, or even humans do. Hannah's hand flew to her mouth as her eyes filled with tears. She was trying to warn us. She very likely saved your child's life, the doctor said softly. The weight of it all crashed over them. Every growl, every bark, every night of tension and confusion. It had all been Daisy's attempt to protect. Not from something dark or imaginary, but from the silent, invisible thief stealing breath from their child's lungs. They stayed 2 nights at the hospital. Noah was fitted with a sleep monitor to alert them if his breathing stopped again. He responded well to treatment and would need regular monitoring, but the doctors were optimistic. Back home, Daisy greeted them at the door, tail wagging, eyes alert. Hannah dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around the dog's neck, sobbing into her fur. "You knew," she whispered. "You were trying to save him the whole time." Daisy didn't move. She just leaned in closer, her body pressed against Hannah's like she understood. She had known. She had been trying to save him all along. The days that followed felt like a blur of emotion. Fear, relief, exhaustion, but above all, gratitude. Hannah couldn't look at Daisy without tearing up. Every time she passed her in the hallway, every time Daisy padded quietly into the nursery, she felt a pang of guilt and a swell of love. They had doubted her. They had considered giving her away. And yet, Daisy never gave up. She returned to her nightly post beside Noah's crib, but this time there was no tension in her body, no growl in her throat. She simply lay there, head resting on her paws, eyes half closed but alert, always alert. She no longer growled because the danger was understood, being treated, monitored, managed. But she stayed, as if to say, "I'm still watching. I'm still here." One quiet morning, after Noah had fallen asleep with his tiny fingers wrapped around Daisy's ear, Hannah knelt beside them. She pressed her forehead to the dog's and let the tears fall freely. "You saved him," she whispered. "You saved our baby." Mark joined her, wrapping one arm around her shoulders and the other around Daisy's neck. "You're not just our dog," he said softly. "You're our guardian angel." The word stuck with them. Daisy wasn't a pet anymore, not just a member of the family. She was a protector, a silent watcher, a hero in golden fur. They began telling friends and neighbors, the pediatrician, even the vet, what Daisy had done. Everyone was amazed. Some cried. Others just stared in disbelief. One neighbor brought Daisy a basket of homemade dog treats, wrapped in a ribbon with a note that read, "To the bravest girl we know." Even as Noah grew and his condition improved, Daisy never left his side. His first word wasn't mama or dada. It was day-day. Hannah and Mark would often find them together. Noah asleep with his head resting against Daisy's belly, her tail wagging slowly in her dreams. And every time they looked at her, every time they remembered those terrifying nights, they felt the same thing. She was more than a dog. She was the reason their son was still alive. Sometimes the most powerful protectors come without words, without uniforms, without warning. They don't speak, but they understand. They don't ask for anything in return, just a chance to stay close to the ones they love. Daisy never demanded attention, never made noise for the sake of it. She simply watched, listened, and acted when it mattered most. When everyone else saw a dog growling in the dark, she was fighting a silent battle for the life of a child who couldn't call for help. Loyalty like that can be trained. It comes from love, from instinct, from the deep, unspoken bond between a child and the one who chooses to protect them, no matter what. And maybe that's what makes dogs like Daisy so special. They don't need to explain themselves. They just need to be trusted. So the next time your dog seems anxious or alert, pay attention. Sometimes they know something we don't. Sometimes they're the first and only warning we'll ever get. If you were touched by Daisy's story and you believe in the quiet heroes among us, subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories of love, loyalty, and life-saving pets. Because some angels have 4 legs and fur,